He notices her. He's interested. That part's real. But he doesn't text first, 3 times in a row. He doesn't rearrange his week. He doesn't perform or pursue or push to close the distance. From the outside, people read this fast. He's arrogant, or emotionally unavailable, or just not that into her. It's usually none of those things, because there's a specific kind of man who feels attraction fully and still doesn't chase. And it's rarely about playing it cool. Something quieter is running underneath, and most people never look closely enough to see it. It shows up in patterns, small, consistent ones, in how he moves, what he offers, and what he refuses to do even when he wants her. You've probably mistaken at least one of them for disinterest, and the first one is the easiest to misread of all. Sign 1. He lets the silence sit. You notice it first in the small gaps. The conversation slows, a pause opens up, and he just lets it be there. He doesn't scramble to fill it, doesn't fire off a follow-up text an hour after the first one went unanswered, doesn't reach for something clever to keep her attention from drifting. Most people can't sit in that silence. It itches. The quiet feels like something going wrong, something that needs fixing right now. He doesn't feel that itch, or if he does, he doesn't obey it. From the outside, this reads as disinterest, or worse, like he's running some cool guy playbook, withholding on purpose. But watch him closely and it's neither. There's no strategy in it. The silence just doesn't alarm him the way it alarms everyone else, because he isn't afraid of losing something he never gripped that tightly to begin with.
Not the absence of interest, the absence of panic. That brings us to sign 2. He won't reorganize his life around a maybe. It shows up the moment his interest collides with his actual life. She's free Thursday, but Thursday's already spoken for, something he committed to weeks ago, something ordinary, a standing plan with a friend, a thing he does for himself. And there's a pull right there to drop it, to be available, to seem like the kind of man who'll clear his week the second she opens a door. Most people feel that pull and follow it. He feels it and lets it pass. It's not that she doesn't matter. It's that his life already had weight before she walked into it, and he's not willing to hollow it out for a possibility that hasn't proven itself yet. Psychologists would point to something like a stable self-concept, a sense of who he is that isn't waiting on her to confirm it. His center of gravity sits inside him, not in whether she picks him. From the outside, this can look like he doesn't care enough, like he's holding back. He's not holding back. He just never handed the steering wheel to someone he barely knows. Sign 3 is quieter and a little harder to fake. He'd rather be understood than chosen. He doesn't shapeshift for her, doesn't mirror every opinion, doesn't sand down the parts of himself that might not land, doesn't perform the most likable possible version of who he is to win her over. And he could. That's the thing. He's capable of being the charming, agreeable, say the right thing guy. He just won't, because he worked something out at some point that a lot of people never do. Being chosen for a version of yourself that isn't real is worse than not being chosen at all. You already know he doesn't perform much for people he's into. That part you can see. What you might not have named is why. It's not laziness, and it's not confidence for its own sake. A win built on a mask isn't a win. It's an audition for a part you'd have to keep playing for as long as it lasts. He'd rather be seen clearly and passed over than picked as someone he isn't, which leads straight into sign 4. He reads pursuit as a signal, not a strategy. When interest does show up, he watches it differently than most. He's not laying siege, not treating winning her over as a campaign with stages and tactics. There's no plan to overcome her hesitation through sheer persistence. Instead, he's quietly reading something, whether it flows both ways. There's a moment, you may know it from the other side, where he notices he's the only one reaching, the only one initiating, carrying the thread, keeping it alive. And where someone else would try harder, push more, he does the opposite. He eases off, not as a trick to make her want him, to see what's actually there when he stops filling the whole space himself. The thing running underneath is simple. Attraction is supposed to be information. When two people are drawn in, effort tends to move in both directions. And he treats one-sided effort as a signal to read, not a problem to overpower. From the outside, this looks like he gives up too easily, folds at the first sign of resistance. But he's not giving up. He's refusing to manufacture something that isn't being met halfway. And there's a specific loneliness in that, in needing the other person to genuinely be there, and not being willing to pretend they are when they're not. Which raises the real question, not what he does, where all of this actually comes from. Sign 5 is the one the others grow out of. His calm isn't indifference, it's self-trust. Because none of the earlier signs are the root, they're branches. This is the thing underneath them, beneath the steadiness, the unrushed replies, the unhijacked evenings, the refusal to chase. There's a single, quiet belief. He'll be okay, whether or not this particular person stays. That's the engine. Watch what happens when a message goes unanswered. Most people feel the floor tilt a little. The mind starts running its checks. Did I say something? Is she pulling away? Should I send another one? The evening bends around that small silence. His doesn't. The message sits unanswered, and he notices, and then he goes back to his night. Not because he's forcing calm over panic, because the panic isn't there to manage in the first place. Psychologists have a name for the pattern underneath this: secure attachment, comfort with closeness, and equal comfort with its absence, without spiraling in either direction. When someone comes close, he doesn't cling. When they pull back, he doesn't collapse. You've felt the difference, maybe, on your good days. The times someone stepped back and you didn't come apart. Layer 1, you knew already. I don't spiral when someone pulls away. Layer 2 is the part worth sitting with. It's because your okayness was never in their hands to begin with. Here's the quiet thing about that calm, though. It's rarely something a man is simply born with. Usually, it was built, which matters later. That self-trust does something uncomfortable too, which brings us to sign 6. He's comfortable walking away from something good enough. Not just bad things, good enough things. The connection that works fine on paper. Nice person, no real problems, everything more or less in place, and still doesn't quite land as it. Someone else stays in that, talks themselves into it. Good enough is warm, it's company. It's easier than the cold of starting over. He'll let it go anyway. There's a small, persistent sense that it isn't quite right. And instead of overriding that sense for the comfort of not being alone, he trusts it. Then he walks. And it tends to surprise everyone around him. Because from the outside, there was nothing visibly wrong. This is the one people diagnose fastest. Commitment phobia. Afraid to settle down. Can't be pleased. But it's usually not fear of commitment. It's a refusal to spend his one life on something that only almost fits. To sign up for half in, when half in is its own slow ache. And holding that bar costs him. That's the part we haven't touched yet. Sign 7. He doesn't confuse being wanted with being valued. Part of the cost is that a lot of what moves other people simply doesn't move him. Someone's clearly into him. The attention is there, the availability, the flattery, all the signals lit up and pointing his way. For most people, that alone is enough to flip something. To be wanted is to be pulled in. He feels it, and it doesn't quite land the way it's supposed to. Because somewhere he learned to separate two things most people keep fused together: being wanted and being valued. They feel identical in the moment. They are not the same thing. And only one of them survives past the early rush. Being wanted is someone reaching for what you represent to them. Being valued is someone seeing what's actually there and staying anyway. He's been wanted before by people who never really saw him. He remembers how hollow that turned out to be. So the signals don't do for him what they do for everyone else. Wanting on its own isn't the thing. He's waiting on the quieter one. Which brings us to the last sign. And the one that isn't purely strength. Sign 8. He protected himself so long, it became who he is. From the outside, all of this looks like evolved confidence. Self-possessed, low need, admirably independent. A man who simply doesn't require the chase. But trace some of it back far enough and you find something else. There was often an earlier version of him. One who did chase. Fully, openly with his whole chest, before he learned not to, and it cost him. He reached all the way out once, held nothing back, and got something back that taught him a lesson he never asked to learn. A door closed quietly after that, not slammed, just eased shut and left shut. So some of this magnificent self-containment isn't only wisdom. Some of it is armor that got so comfortable he stopped noticing he was wearing it. This is the part he can't always see clearly himself. The same steadiness that protects him, that keeps him from chasing what isn't right, can also hold the right person at exactly arm's length. Close enough to see, never close enough to reach. And on any given day, he can't always tell which one is running, the strength or the scar. So put it all together, and here's what it isn't. It isn't arrogance. It isn't coldness. It isn't the absence of feeling or some studied performance of not caring. It's a man whose center holds on its own, for reasons that are part strength and part old scar tissue that never fully faded. The not chasing was never the thing itself. It was the outward shape of an inward steadiness. Some of it hard-won and real, some of it built in a season when not reaching for anyone was simply safer. Here's the quiet distinction worth holding if you recognized him, or recognized yourself. The strength was never in refusing to chase. It's in knowing the difference between not chasing because you're whole and not chasing because you're guarding. And being honest with yourself about which one is driving today. Because the man who doesn't chase isn't running from connection. He's waiting for the kind that doesn't ask him to abandon himself to have it. That's the whole of it. Not a wall, a standard, with a wound somewhere behind it. If this one landed, the thread runs on into the men who feel everything deeply and let almost none of it show. That one's worth staying for, too.